Hi guys, and welcome to another NEPC Performance Podcast. I am joined by Charlotte. How are we doing, Charlotte?
Good, thank you, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good,
And I'm
good.
also joined by Mr. Simon Trenholm. How are we doing, Si?
How you going? Very well, very well. Glad to be back.
Good stuff, good stuff.
My
Yeah,
break.
you've had a couple of weeks hiatus, haven't you, mate? You know?
Oh, yeah, 2 weeks off doing nothing. Yeah, right.
Yeah, look like it.
Don't worry, we kept the conversation flowing for you, mate. We kept the conversation flowing.
I've heard.
Yeah,
I've heard.
It was really good. It was really good. So after our awful technical error last week, Charlotte, where we had a really engaging conversation, and then the bugger decided not to save.
Oh, I know.
We're now making sure we've got a few backups, and it's not just disappearing into the thin air.
Good. I'm so pleased about that. I was upset. Never mind. Technology, it's amazing when it works for you.
I know. I can't believe we discussed the meaning of life, how to make £1 million in a week, and also how to just drop 5 stone in a day.
That magic pill that we found.
I know. I can't believe I've lost the notes from that, and I forgot everything we talked about. So it's such a shame, isn't it?
Oh,
I knew you two were so annoyed. I didn't even think about putting anything on our conversations. But no, I only live 10 miles away. It's not far enough.
That's it.
Yeah, I know. Hey ho.
There we go. Lessons learned. I'm sure we'll pick it up again now.
Absolutely. Have you had a good week?
Yeah, it's certainly been challenging. There's got quite a lot of deadlines now. Obviously, the gym's it's full bore at the gym. It's full bore with coaching, full bore with my consultancy contract that I've got as well. So, everything's getting squeezed into 18-hour days at the moment. So, hey, it is what it is. You get out what you put in, don't you? Do you know?
Yeah.
So,
you've been here before.
Yeah.
Just like being back at uni, isn't it?
That's it. Normal, mate. Normal. So, there we go.
Yeah.
So how's your week been, Charlotte? I know you've been visiting an injured sister, haven't you?
Yeah, very frustrated injured sister. She's she's dislocated her talus bone in her foot, so she's going to have quite a long road to recovery. So I just went to give her a hand, really. But it was great because I could just take my laptop and keep working. And she's got 3 sons. 2 of them train pretty hard, so I could still train as well. They have all the equipment there, so that was good. It was good. Yeah, I've had a good week. And then back to it. I've been a bit kind of like, where's the week gone? Just a bit crazy. But yeah, and a couple of new clients that I've trained this week as well, so that's been good. And back into the outdoor training, which I'm really enjoying, training to the sound of the birds and being outside. It's totally different. If I could just put the squat racks out there and a bit more equipment, you know. But yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a good week.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I know I saw that you were struggling for a prowler sled. So with that in mind, there is a spare one in the back of the gym, the Bulldog sled. So you can feel free to take that. It'll fit in the back of your car.
They will love that.
It's going to be plowing the park.
Yeah. So it goes better on grass than it does on indoor turf. Yeah. So.
Yeah, brilliant. They'll love that. Can you imagine? We were only joking. We didn't mean it. We actually really like just working for one dumbbell.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But no, it's good. It's been good. It's been good. Just carry on adapting.
Yeah, that's it. How's your week been, Si?
Good. Been a couple of weeks of kind of we've got down the side of the house, sort of adjacent to this window here, just down here, a sort of 18, 19 metre sort of by 2 metre, it was just gravel, well, big old gravel and weeds and stuff. So that's now all been paved. So busy doing that. Managed to secure a couple of tyres, some hammers. So it's given an extra sort of dimension to the garden training stuff. And and then obviously having the yoke squat rack from the back of the gym that hasn't been getting used up there. It's been getting some serious hammer in the back garden as well. So yeah, really good. And I've unleashed when we were over in LA 2 or 3 years ago, Jace Dolby got Syra hitting a tyre with a mace, and I've got her hitting the tyre with a sledgehammer. I'm never arguing with her again.
I was going to say.
That is it. No way.
Any arguments now? She'll just be like, right outside.
Yeah, I've got a hammer.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's really good, and it's meant that I can get my battle ropes out, because I've got a couple of different diameter battle ropes, but they're just too long to use in the garage. You don't get any kind of sort of movement through them, so they're a lot more effective out there. So yeah, it's, as I say, it's added a real sort of dimension to the PT, and picked up another couple of clients up, got another couple in the pipeline as well. So busy, starting to feel like a full-time job. I'm retired. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be part-time, and I've never worked so many hours in my life over this last few months.
No.
It's all good though.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Getting new clients, and I think this is the first wave of appreciation for fitness and health and everything else as well, isn't it? So, which is good to see people starting to invest in themselves and realizing that life isn't just about surviving the end of the week and then just drowning your sorrows in a bottle of wine and stuff like that. You know, they're still probably getting to bottom of a bottle of wine, but at least they're working hard and doing a bit of exercise with it as well. So
definitely.
But
they're earning their wine.
That's it. But I think it's really interesting. You're really starting to notice a change in attitude, people's attitude to fitness and physical activity and stuff. Now, whether this is just the weather and everything else is like that, but it's really nice to see. It's really refreshing to see people sort of actually making it a bit of a priority. You know, even probably a lot of people have already gone back to work, but it's still a huge priority for a lot of people. But obviously on the flip side, there's going to be some people that have still struggled to adapt and are probably relying on the gyms to open, which I understand, you know, but it's also the other element of making sure you focus on what you can control, isn't it?
Do you think as well, because obviously this is a health issue that we've been put under, for want of a better word, you know, I think maybe people have actually realised that, you know, health is wealth, and that they really do need, it's giving them a bit of a wake-up call. You know, this thing could kill me, you know, this thing is killing people, and actually maybe I'm not as robust as I thought I was, you know, so actually I better start investing in myself. There could be a bit of that, as well as obviously the nice weather.
But also, I mean, I think you've got that sort of, when lockdown first started, that was it. You weren't going out. The only reason that you could go out was for your hour of exercise. And just going out and having a walk around, the number of people just in our neighbourhood that were jogging who had never jogged in their lives. And I think that habit built up while we were all in lockdown, while the only reason you could go out was to go and get your hour of exercise. And people have carried on that habit, which is also fantastic. But it just, you know, the three of us do a lot of habit-based stuff anyway. And it's, if that habit is formed, it's a habit that they want to keep. It's just a natural progression to go, well, actually, I can still go out, but I'm going to go and do my hour of exercise. And do you think that's got something to do with it? Or do you just think...
Yeah, it's like anything, isn't it? You take a toy away from a child. Obviously, Charlotte, you'll know this from back in the day, right? We're going to sort out your room. You haven't played with this for 6 months. Oh no, but I was just about to play with it. Can't get rid of that. Well, I think it's the same as kind of we all want what we can't have, isn't it? You know, and I think as soon as stuff like physical activity gets something that we take for granted so much. And then when it got sort of restricted, you were kind of forced to get out, and then you were able to sort of understand the benefits of it and stuff. But I think what's really interesting is people's attitude to physical exercise and getting out has changed, and they realise the importance. But where they do their physical activity and their physical exercise, that's also changed as well. So we're noticing a lot, and I know we've chatted, haven't we, in terms of people are just not going to be returning back to large scale gyms and leisure centres and stuff, do you know? Whether that's because the media's kind of vilified gyms of being these dirty, grubby, infection-ridden places and stuff like that, where you're going to, which is just totally not true.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think people have adapted to not going into kind of busy environments, and I think the last thing you want to do is go to a heaving gym on Monday night on International Chest Day.
Chest Day.
You know. But it's going to be interesting to see how the big gyms do.
I think so.
I really think it's going to be interesting, because I think a lot of people have learned how to stay active with very minimal kit, getting back to basics, which is probably what a lot of people needed. But saying that, the amount of people who've got hip flexor injuries and niggles and stuff like that. There's only so many mountain climbers and squat thrusts and burpees and stuff you can do, and I think a lot of people are starting to feel that now. So, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think as well, because for us, and to be honest, I mean, we're talking about injuries, but I've noticed that, you know, actually, I think because we've been able to build in a strength program, a regular program for people, I think our clients, certainly my clients, I haven't really experienced that, because we've been able to give them something that they can still continue with the strength. They can still, because we knew they were going to be running more, so we've developed a program to help them run. We knew they were going to be sat like this for most of the day, so we developed a program to enable them to pull everything back. And so actually, I'm quite pleased with what we've been able to offer people and how we've been able to adapt, so that people are going to come out of this actually still pretty strong and robust, rather than, you know, just running 50 miles a week and that's it.
I think we're going to have to get a soundtrack of bird song, aren't we, for the gym when we do open it up. It's no more hip hop.
They'll be like, what's this noise?
just bird song in the background.
No.
But I think
running water and the rain coming out of the roof.
Yeah. Well, it already comes in anyway.
Through the roof.
We got that sorted.
That's it. But I think what is good is like, definitely you're right there, Charlotte, in terms of strength isn't about getting into a squat rack or putting on a load of weight on a deadlift bar or a trap bar, or just picking up the heaviest dumbbells you can really find. So you sort of, the load is dictating how strong you get. There's loads of different ways that you can stay strong, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that they have to earn the right to be able to put excessive load on a bar. And I think by getting them to be controlled in eccentrics, isos, different positional stuff, that's a massive stimulus. I think it's allowed them to sort of tighten up any loose links within the chain. And I think that's been really good to see. You know, a lot of people are probably looking a lot better, moving a lot better, and feeling a lot better from that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully they continue that.
Yeah, and I think obviously, you know, because with all three of us, we always start off with our 5-in-5 mobility, don't we? It's like a ritual, and because if they're, and a great one to have, and I think I've done it 4 times today, but because a lot of them actually probably training a bit more regularly, so they're getting that in as well. So they're getting the mobility stuff in, which they might have only done a couple of times a week before. But obviously we know that you've got to build the strength to go with that. But yeah, I think just that sort of more regular pattern as well has probably really helped people.
Yeah,
which is good. That's
definitely.
Good. I had to certainly get very adapted. You know, today I was wedged with my arms on 2 dining room chairs doing delt bridge. Going, stay. and my arms are shaking. I had a tea towel, I had 2 chairs and 1 dumbbell this morning. That was it. And last week, the DOMS in my back was unreal. I was like, I've lifted 1 weight.
That's it. That's it.
Just getting inventive.
Body weight
all you
stuff,
need.
calisthenics is.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But I think the flip side of it is all of the people that have realised the importance of activity and the importance of health. I think the flip side of it is, unfortunately, the people who are coming out of this physical activity stuff a lot worse off is kids.
Yeah.
Really, really, I think, because the kids don't need as much structured exercise. They need creative play. They need situational. They need game-based training.
Yeah.
Unless you're a parent who's can deliver that, then then you can't do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of kids are going to lose out for it. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the kids certainly react when they get back to sport. I know they're chomping at the bit to get back, and I've been doing one-to-ones with kids and stuff. And the biggest feedback I get from parents is just the change in mood.
Yeah,
and you're
totally.
they just feel uplifted, and you're like, that's great. But what about the parents who haven't got access to the kids going into a specific exercise program, and they can't do the clubs? And some kids who just used to get their physical exercise through sports clubs and at school,
or even just walking to school. You're totally right. And I think, you sometimes forget we're in a privileged situation in our jobs and as parents, and training children as well. It's like, and I've got a dog as well. So it's like, we've got a dog we can walk. We know that our kids need to exercise. We put them into structured programs as well. But like you say, there'll be some kids which are literally sat on their Xbox all day, and that's the sad fact, isn't it? And it's and some of the clubs are getting back. I mean, Lola's got back to football, which is brilliant, to a fashion. But I think, as we've just been discussing, maybe he's going back into school in September. They might not be getting quite the sport and things that they'll be hoping to get as well. So it's kind of just making sure that they've just staying active, even if it's just walking, isn't it? Just getting them outside in the fresh air and away from the gadgets and phones and TV.
And I think
it's just active play again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Running around, get out on your bike, go and be kids.
But the thing is we look at it and we look at what is a powerful driver for kids getting into activity and getting into exercise is seeing their parents being active. So, and I think, who knows what the schools are going to look like, and who knows what the clubs are going to look like and stuff like that,
Yeah.
We've seen it in different countries around the world. Sometimes they have to go back into a lockdown,
Yeah.
Some countries are, some cities in the UK have, and stuff like that. So I think now's the time for parents to take responsibility a little bit more. I'm not saying parents are not, but I think there's got to be that level of awareness there, just to say, listen, your kid probably isn't going to get access to the same level of sport and into the same amount of volume and play it the same way for at least till the end of the year. So you need to make sure that you are getting out regularly with them, you are doing structured exercise, or you are doing any sort of form of exercise, or you're actually getting a bit clued up on it.
Yeah.
Because before lockdown, the current statistics were, I think it was like just under 34% of year 6 children were classified as obese.
And the number was increasing.
And I'm not saying, and we know it's not as simple as just exercise. Kids don't do as much exercise because that's why they're obese. We know that there's more than 100 contributing factors to obesity. I know that, but it's certainly one of those that has a knock-on effect. In terms of mental health well-being and just all overall well-being. Do you know what I mean? And I think parents need to really spend a little bit of time just understanding actually, why is it important that my child does exercise? Why is it important anybody does exercise, but specifically a child? Do you know, because the statistics are getting absolutely frightening.
They're going in the wrong direction, aren't they? I think as well, you mentioned it, it's like from the mental health side of things. I think, you know, the kids are going to, unfortunately, they're going to really see the fallout from this, because not only have they lost the sort of, you know, that daily interaction from school, but also that daily kind of physical contact with their friends, which is really an important part of development. So there's so much of their development that at the moment has been halted in a way. So the more that a parent can do, and like you say, it doesn't have to be go out and do an hour's, you know, training session. It can be a simple thing of just going for a walk by the river, you know, maybe it's just upping the pace a little bit to start with, you know, but getting some fresh air, talking. And that is the mental health of children is going to be a massive thing to watch over the next, you know, as we're coming hopefully out of this over the next year or so, isn't it? As kids have had to, well, like I say, have taken all those social interactions away from them.
Yeah.
So, and like you say, activity is a massive part of that. Obviously, there's the nutrition side, Simon, as well, which is another huge part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you know, I mean, I'm hoping that the kind of the nutrition side, with people being furloughed, they've still got money coming in, so that they can still have sort of, you know, on the whole, there's an ability to keep buying food. But time means that you can actually, you're no longer having to go, right, I've got 10 minutes, I'm just going to stick a microwave in the oven. And that's, you know, what a lot of those videos that I've been showing, you know, try to keep it quick, try to keep it simple, but, you know, just kind of cooking from fresh ingredients, which is what we all talk about anyway. But, you know, hopefully with people having a bit more time, they've started those habits, which will lead into, you know, when people are getting back into the workplace, you know, you're going to, again, it's, you know, like the exercise thing. You know, hopefully people are going to continue those habits, because that'll benefit the kids. And getting the kids involved in cooking as well, because, you know, it's a life skill that it's just invaluable, being able to cook. You know, as I say, it's just a fantastic life skill in my opinion.
And I think a lot of people, we need to sort of, I know we're at the coalface and everything else, so we deal with this quite often, but I think people are going to need to start getting out of the ostrich syndrome, what I like to call it, in terms of burying their head in the sand and just saying it's an inconvenient truth. But actually, you can blame the schools, you can blame all of the clubs, you can blame the government, all of this, but actually your child is not educated. We know now, this just highlights it even more, your child is not educated between the hours of 9 and 3. Do you know, they're educated outside of that, so the habits and the life skills and the things that they're going on. But I heard some news today, whether it gets 100% passed and certified, but because of the kids have lost so much time from schools, the emphasis next year is not going to be on sport. It's not going to be on art, geography, history, or any of that. It's literally, the agenda is trying to get the kids caught up on numeracy and literacy. Now we've seen it as soon as that becomes the main metric in which a school is seen as successful or unsuccessful, just based on how the kids achieve results in numeracy and literacy, it has a detriment on sport, because you can't blame the schools to a certain extent, because their resources are going into teaching the kids maths and English. But we know that actually, if you engage a child who's disruptive, who isn't showing any interest in that, if you get them into structured sport, their engagement with, I think it was literacy went up something like 40%. It's like absolutely frightening. So it's kind of like, hang on, you're going to try and ramp up the maths and English. You're going to get away from more physical activity just to appease some numbers to try and play and catch up. It's just to satisfy a quota, which is just like bonkers, absolutely bonkers for from my point of view, because there's so many kids out there that just don't you know, you put maths in English, they don't do it, do they?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, you know, it's that whole thing of just trying to shove square pegs in round holes. And it's, you know, kids need stimulation other than the books and in front of them. They need that mental stimulation that comes from physical activity. And a lot of kids, you know, that academic side, it doesn't really fit. And I think it frightens me, to be honest. I do find it really frightening, because I think the fallout from that isn't going to be good. And it's just another pullback from, you know, investing in our young children, our young people. You know, it's slightly political, but going back to when they kind of got rid of, like, you know, youth workers and all of that side of things, and outreach into local communities, which do fantastic work. But as soon as they cut budgets, all of that good work where they're reaching people that really need help, it just goes. And it's the same with sport, you know, and it's kind of, sport reaches children and young people like nothing else, doesn't it? You know, look at kind of all the things like the boxing academies that help children who are kind of marginalized on the outskirts of education. They massively help them, and it's just so short-sighted. And I have no words.
And but I mean, just from an ex-teacher's point of view, the thought from teachers, you know, having to teach a full morning of maths. Kids don't learn in sort of 3-hour chunks. They need breaks. They need, now more and more so, I mean, you've only got to look at the sort of YouTube generation, that they're learning, or they're watching things in 5-minute chunks, and that's, the retention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And to sort of sit for 3 hours and try and do maths and literacy, where you know the kids are sitting down, they're just, you know, that it's bell task, it's task, and the pressure on teachers is going to be awful as well. And
but what
the
kids like as well, you know.
But the kids are going to get into a cycle of you know, they might be able to focus for the first hour, but then the next hour, you're going to have 20-30% engagement. And you kind of almost at the point, I mean, you know, even when adults are working, you know, the sort of optimum is sort of, you know, 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes of rest, or 10 minutes of something else. I know when I was working from home, I drank a hell of a lot of tea every hour, but you know, it just gave me a break, and it made me more productive if I didn't just try and do a 4-hour stint of work. You know, I mean, it's not like I went off and washed my hair and stuff, but but kids again need that sort of intense work, bit of rest, bit of relax, intense work, bit of rest, bit of relax, and the change of subjects, getting out and doing some physical activity. I think it's just key to learning.
Yeah. But you look at the success of outdoor schools, or the way that education is in, say, Scandinavia, where, you know, there is less of a focus on that, and the success rates are so much higher, aren't they, than the kind of the education, the curriculum that we have here, which is so focused on, I get being focused on results, but to be so focused on a certain set of results, as in numeracy and literacy, is just it's just it's crazy to then take sport out of that and to take physical activity out of that. I mean, in my view, most kids should start the day with physical activity. You know, just start the day with, you know, Joe Wicks. I know Joe Wicks every morning at 9 o'clock, that PE thing, great, because the kids are getting up and they're doing it, and it's a regular thing, and it's getting them going for the day. You know what it's like when you do an hour's exercise, or half an hour, or even 20 minutes. What do you do first thing every morning, Steve? You exercise, don't you? You do your snatch, you know, and it's kind of because it fires you up, it gets the brain going, and it's the same with kids, isn't it? It's no different.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the schools adapt and everything else as well. But they were already under so much pressure before the lockdown in terms of their KPIs and everything else as well, and how they were judged. You know, you take away the ability to compete in town sports because that's not free. You know, the ability to compete in football tournaments and actually giving the kids an outlet of being able to learn important life lessons like teamwork, supporting your fellow teammates, learning to lose,
Yeah.
you know, learning to win, learning to actually work towards a goal, learning to be creative in terms of actually, if I put my foot here, that gives me a little bit more power and I can jump higher. All of these little things that come from physical activity in sport, you don't have to be the best. It's about what it gives you. And the aspect of sport for me is there's some crucial skills. Now, this country, we are in a capitalist society. This is what the Western world's built on. You know, we love it when we see successful businesses thrive and stuff like that. How many people go into local businesses from sport to do educational talks or to do motivational talks? The transition from sport, high-level elite sport, to business, they're kind of one of the same. They're all motivational athletes going in and talking about these different things, you know, and it's always about teamwork, leadership skills. Like, I understand, I'm not belittling maths and English and stuff, and they are really important skills to learn, but you ain't got to learn how to lead somebody whilst in the middle of a maths lesson.
No, whilst working out the area of a triangle.
You know, like, your creativity, you are limited, and Si will know this from a teacher's point of view. You can try and be the most creative teacher in the world, but sometimes you are limited, and if they're just going to focus on those subjects and take at the detriment of others, I do not envy any teacher who has that task, because you've got kids who will just be disruptive. You'll have kids who are struggling. You've got kids who will just lose confidence because they'll have no outlet in any way to perform. Do you know? If they're just judged on one thing, do you know? And it's just,
I mean, even just learning new skills, though, you need to, you know, the child brain is, as we know, it's very plastic anyway, so it's always laying down new pathways, but you know, it takes time for those pathways to assimilate. So physical activity, downtime, gives your brain that time to relearn and re-go over the points that you've learned in maths, in science, in English. It gives the brain that time to sort of develop those pathways. So I think it's going to be a difficult one, but again, it all leads back to then, where does the responsibility for physical activity go? And it goes back onto the parents, which, you know, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? If parents take that responsibility seriously and get fitter in the process, you might say that's a good thing. But to take physical activity out of school, I just think there's going to be far too many kids fall down the cracks. They're just going to fall down, and it's going to be the most disadvantaged kids who fall down the cracks.
That's what I was just going to say as well, is if this comes down to, there's going to be so many discrepancies between schools. Because if there are schools who do have deep pockets and different types of schools, you know, you're going to end up almost with an elitist kind of system, aren't you, in terms of sport as well? Because, you know, those schools which perhaps don't, you know, there'll be schools that are in serious amounts of debt. We know this, you know? And so where does that leave the kids who would go to, say, a standard school like my kids do, who actually, you know, Lola's main reason for going to school is PE. She loves it. A couple of other subjects, but she lives for the PE. You know, but where does that leave kids who maybe are aspiring? She wants to be a physio, you know, so where does that leave those kids that want to aspire to a sport as well further on down the line, who aren't being encouraged, whose parents perhaps can't afford to put them into clubs which they're going to have to pay for after school because they're not getting it in school. It's really problematic, I think, long term, if this does happen, and if it does, then as the chances are, snowball. And
because parents, if you've got two parents working long hours because they have to, they're not going to have time to take their kids to the clubs.
And on the flip side, there'll be the parents that can't afford to take the kids to after school clubs, which is where it'll end up being, won't it? Because as with the best will in the world, it would be great if we could all just, set up some free after school clubs, but that's not going to happen. So yeah, it's quite,
again, the gaps to fall down are just huge, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's see how this one pans out, guys. Let's see how it pans out, and fingers crossed. Hopefully, it's just somebody will see sense, and there'll be enough out there. But yeah, watch this space, guys. Watch this space.
Absolutely. We've got a few spaces to watch, haven't we? So in a couple of weeks' time, we might have a bit more of an understanding as to where we stand in terms of gyms. You never know.
I know they're opening in 2 weeks' time. Boris has said this morning on LBC, it wasn't one of his throwaway comments. I think gyms are going to open in a fortnight. Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know whether anybody's watched it, but yeah, it looked like one of his kind of caught on the spot. Just going to say something, and then I'll put the caveat: as long as it's COVID friendly, we'll be all right. So yeah,
I think
numbers out of thin air.
Yeah, it's one of them now, isn't it? It's getting to the point where people are just going to start kind of breaking the rules and putting people at risk and stuff like that, because one, you're messing with people's livelihoods in terms of gym owners and everything else like that. So they're going to start bending the rules and making it suit their own agenda and stuff. But then are you putting people at risk by doing that? And I think everybody celebrated when the pubs opened and everything else like that. I think if people actually sat down and looked at the stipulations of a pub opening, you'll soon realise that a lot of your pubs are not going to stay open for much longer, because they're not going to be able to do the business if that's the way they should be. What is interesting is there's a lot of local authorities have started to police it in terms of being COVID secure and everything else like that. So you've kind of got trading standards, the police doing drop-ins in certain centres and certain gyms up and down the country. And the thing is until we get the go-ahead, our insurance is invalid, because insurance companies won't provide it until there's it's law that gyms can't open at the moment. It's still law. The outdoor stuff is guidance, so that's why you will have boot camps who will break the rules and stuff because they're just trying to get the cash in, which rightly or wrongly so. They're trying to put a roof over the head and food in their kids' mouths, so you understand it. But people need to understand what is the guidance and how will your gym look when it does open. And I'm sorry to say, it will not look the same as what it did before. Not a cat in hell's chance.
Absolutely. And I think, to be honest, I think most reasonable people understand that, don't they? And I think luckily everybody that I've spoken to of my clients has said, just whatever it has to be and whenever it has to be, that's cool. We've waited this long, so let's get it right. And the insurance is a big thing as well, but also we've got to remember our ultimate priority is keeping people safe when they come and train with us. And that's the be all and end all, isn't it? So there's certainly no way that I want to put any of my clients or myself at risk. There's us too. And if we're not fit and healthy, we can't even open, we can't train you. So it's we've got to remember that it's about everyone that's coming into the gym.
That's it. And like I say, it's certainly going to be interesting. Like I say, the guidance and the stipulations. And I mean, this is why I'm doing everything I'm doing to the gym and everything else like that, to just completely revamp it and change change the layout of it just to suit what they could possibly, so it's quite adaptable to the all different areas, so I don't need to put any of you guys at risk or any of the members at risk, you know. You know, it'd be easy to make a quick pound here, there and everywhere and stuff like that and try and take advantage of the rules, but
short term that though, isn't it?
yeah, well, that's it, you know. How do we feel when somebody like rolls their ankle when they go for a run on one of our programs, or tweaks their back or something? You feel horrible.
Yeah.
Imagine your client,
I'm
not coming in today. Why? Because I'm hooked up to a ventilator because I've caught coronavirus. And you're like, oh, how awful are you going to feel if that happens?
Absolutely.
You know? So
absolutely. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, everybody has adapted really well, and we've all got things in place where, you know, I've got a couple of people that have started training with me in lockdown. You know, we've got technology on our side, so let's just keep using it while we can, and just keep everybody safe.
Yeah, that's it. You are not defined by the four walls that you train in.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Is that a quote to end?
It sounds like a quote to end. Steve Gordon 2020. There we go.
That's a good one, that.
Keep hold of that one.
That's it.
We will come back to it.
That's it. There we go, guys. Well, like I say, I think that was a really good one, and I think hopefully the key takeaways from that is, you know, continue to be adaptable to your situations, your scenarios. Don't take things for granted because they're always changing. But when it comes to your kids and stuff like that, physical activity, it's time to be a little bit more educated and looking at ways of getting your kids active and engaged in physical activity, because it might not be the same as what it will be in schools for sure going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, well said.
Cool. Right, guys, hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for checking out another episode of NEPC Performance Podcast, and hopefully we'll see you guys again very soon.
Cheers, guys.
Take
Thank
care.
you.